to episode 3 of the Trigger Train Saturday live stream. I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm high on cold medication, which might make for an interesting stream. But speaking of inebriated, I've got a very special guest. Well, I've been on his channel a few times, but this is going to be his first time talking with us on the Trigger Train Triggering channel. I have everybody's favorite drunken Scott, the Critical Drinker. How are you, my friend?
Thank you very much, sir. I am about 70% this evening. Instead of being drunk, I'm kind of hungover today. So, yeah, I'll do my best to get through it. I don't always make the right words come out when I'm like this, but we'll see how it goes. But it's good to be here anyway to chat to you.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, you're recovering, and let's see, I'm on Dayquil, Benylin. I might try some Neocitrin, Tylenol, cough and cold. So it's a fun time. So this is as close to high as you will ever hear me on the Bulls Trek channel. So drinker, for the probably two people that don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, I'm the critical drinker, and I make it my business to critique shitty movies and TV shows, and generally make fun of them and point out their problems and their flaws, and where possible, I guess try and make suggestions on how they could be made better. And every so often, I'll pepper it with some recommendations of good shows and good movies that I've enjoyed in the past. And that's pretty much what I do. I've been making these videos for the past year or so, and this has really kind of taken off over the past 6 months, I guess. And yeah, I cover everything from Star Wars to Marvel to just any kind of movies that are out at the moment. And I've had a good bit of fun and packed away quite a bit of booze in my time.
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny because I discovered your channel. I think it was around July or August. I'm pretty sure it was one of your Star Wars videos. So I just kept seeing it come up on my recommended. So I'm like, I'll check this out. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is hilarious. I think I spent the next 3 to 4 hours marathoning your videos, and just looking at the way your channel has exploded. To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a channel explode as quickly as yours did. And I've been doing this YouTube thing for, well, since Moses was a baby. So it's your Charlie's Angels review. I think that's well over 500,000 views at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done pretty well. It's one of those things that I figured it would be popular, and I was I was chatting to some other people about it the other day, and they were like, "God, I think you're the only guy that's actually bothered to review this movie on YouTube." And I was like, "Yeah, because I know people will get a bit of a laugh out of it, so I certainly did." It was
Yeah, no,
a
I
fun
just
video.
covered the press.
Yeah, but no, God, it was a tough one to sit through for 2 hours, but to make the video, it was a good laugh. So something good came out of it.
So let's discuss that anyway. So you're one of the 5 or 6 people that actually went and suffered through that movie. And if and also I should say, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Drinker, which you need to, his channel is in the video description, or at least it should be. The streaming stuff is kind of wonky. And YouTube did not save it. Okay, I will drop it in the chat shortly. I've been using StreamYard, and it works, but it's clunky. So anyways, drinker. So you were one of the only people I know. Well, actually, I think you are the only person I know that went to suffer through that movie. So for everybody here, Owen, we have actually, before we go into this, we'll just get our first few super chats. No comment, but $1 from Matt G. Well, thank you again, Matt. I know you were here last week. From aged boomer. Okay, boomer. Don't worry, I get it all the time too. Critical drinker. I finally got around to watching Midsummer. That's 2.5 hours of my life I'll never get back. Oh, we can discuss that too. You did a video on that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did warn you guys about it. God, no one should be watching that movie.
Okay, actually, well, since it's the super chat, we'll go into Charlie's Angels in a minute. But for those that have not seen the video, just enlighten us. What is this Midsummer thing? For me, it seemed to be somewhat of a giant clusterfuck. I swear on my live streams because I get demonetized anyway, so I just kind of don't give a shit. But yeah, so first, what is this midsummer thing? We'll do this for OK Boomer. And like I said, I'm old, so I'll be OK Boomer. I'm Gen X, but people think I'm a boomer. So, Drinker, what was midsummer?
Like in terms of, you want a synopsis of it kind of thing?
Yes. What what
Okay.
what potential issues did this have?
Okay, so I mean, it's marketed as a horror movie. It's set in like Sweden during the festival of Midsummer, and uh, a group of sort of college students go there to observe the festival, and then gradually start seeing more and more horrific things happening. Like an old couple fling themselves off a cliff, and then one of them gets their fucking face smashed in with a hammer. They start. Disappearing one by one mysteriously, and you'd think they should probably leave at that point, but they just hang around and they don't really seem to know what's going on. It's just a lot of the horror movie tropes that became completely played out years ago are just kind of recycled here. The issues I had with the movie is that, first and foremost, as a horror film, it's not scary in the slightest. Like, I was just bored watching it. It's incredibly pretentious. You've got these drawn out scenes of like ceremonies and rituals going on, like all the kind of pagan stuff, but none of it's put into any sort of context, so you don't have a clue what's going on or why, and it just kind of lulls you into this weird hypnotic trance where you're just zoned out. Didn't care about any of the characters, didn't like any of the characters. The the boyfriend of the main character is like drugged and coerced into having sex with like one of the girls in the village because she wants to get pregnant. But then he's treated as like a villain because of that, and he ends up getting put inside a bear and set on fire just because. Why not? These are just a rundown of some of the least ridiculous things that happen in it. Someone eats a pie made out of pubic hair. Again, because why not? That's the thing to do. And yeah, I just came out of it like, what the fuck have I just seen? That was 2.5 hours of utter nonsense. It really does drag as well. Like, most horror movies are around 90 minutes because they need to move at a fair clip before you start to question what's going on. But this just keeps fucking going. So for all those reasons, I gave it a bad review. Some people seem to take issue with that, and they're like, "You're just not seeing the themes of this movie. That makes it really smart." So then I did a follow-up video talking about why themes are fucking pointless when it comes to film criticism, because if you try hard enough, you can see pretty much any theme in anything. And so it's for me, it's not a valid way to critique a movie. You can't just say, well, mechanically this movie is shit and it doesn't function as whatever it's trying to be, but it's got great themes, so that automatically makes it good. Sorry, I've gone on a big old rant there, but that's my issues with Midsummer.
It's like grade one level writing. Okay, we're going to write a theme today. It's like that scene from A Christmas Story. But yeah, it's well, I think you had called that your choice, at least at that point, for worst movie of the year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it may get dethroned in a couple of weeks. We'll see. But yeah, as in terms of like, I'm sure even with a Star Wars movie, like I can at least be entertained by flashy explosions and things. Whereas with Midsummer, I just wanted to fucking kill myself. Like I was so bored. I think I actually did pass out briefly. Like it was that kind of film.
Now, with Charlie's Angels, I tend to think, although I could be wrong, but it almost looked like it looked like it was a Batwoman type of scenario where it's so bad it's good. Was it so bad and over the top it was good, or was it just shit?
It was just boring and shit. This is the thing, right? I kind of expected like, oh, it'll be ridiculous over the top action, and they'll be doing all like backflips and shooting guns, dual wielding pistols and all that sort of thing. But it doesn't really happen, and that was my biggest surprise about the film. The action scenes are actually pretty pared back, and I think the trailer shows you pretty much everything that happens, like from a car chase explosion point of view. And I think that was a conscious choice by the director because she was trying to target the film at women. And so she didn't want to have too much action to put them off. But then action's really all you can rely on in something like this. Like you don't have, this isn't a movie with a compelling story or great actors to play it off, or great dialogue or just anything that would draw you in. And so for me, it was just just bad. You know, it wasn't so much that I could laugh at it; it was just shitty and boring. Um, and that was my thing. I think it was even trying to be a little bit serious at times. Like, you know, I compared it to the Charlie's Angels movies from the early 2000s, and they recognized how nonsensical they were and how they were just a bit of a joke. And so that's how they played it. It was lighthearted and it was campy and it was silly. But you could enjoy it on that basis. Whereas this one's trying to be a bit more serious. And because of that, it just fails badly.
Well, that's one thing that I found kind of funny because even when it was just it's a strange choice to reboot because even when the 2000 movie came out, which Jesus, that's 19 years ago now. Even at that point, not that many people actually even remembered what Charlie's Angels was. It was, a show, and I've never actually watched an episode of
I
Charlie's
think,
Angels.
yeah, it's before my time and probably yours as well. And I think, the show was just played for a bit of. Are you ringing?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna turn that off. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the show was just played for a bit of not exploitation, but they were very aware that the three girls were very attractive, and they used that quite a lot. Um, but yeah, like the movies that came out in the early 2000s, I think they did okay financially. I don't think they made mega bucks, but then there was no huge audience. There was no like hordes of people clamoring for another Charlie's Angels movie. So it was a weird, like you say, it was a weird choice. And I think that was, this perfect storm of failure that they had with this movie. Not a particularly popular franchise, no big names in it really, no interesting action or anything to draw people in. And then, playing on identity politics, which just no one cares about anymore.
well, it almost mystifies me now, and I've talked about this actually in my last two live streams as well. It mystifies me as to how this stuff is still going on because when with the identity politics inclusion, it's with rare exceptions like, well, Captain Marvel and The Last Jedi for specific reasons, and it wasn't so much for the movies themselves, but the events that surrounded the movies are. And God damn it, stop texting me. I am going to shut this thing down. Power off. Thank you. Oh, now it wants me to enter in my PIN. I have a Samsung S5 Neo because I'm incredibly cheap. I've had this piece of shit for 4 years, and it's mainly just because I refuse to buy a new phone because I don't want to change my contract, but the thing is fucked. I just had to fight with it to get it to turn off. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So we're talking about how this stuff continues to come out. So we have two movies with identity politics that were successful, but not for the movies themselves. We had Captain Marvel, which was sandwiched right in between the two of the biggest movies in history. And then you have The Last Jedi, which is mainly because nobody knew what they were getting into. But this is a movie that should have made $2 million and dropped off at 1.3 because after that opening weekend, it became public. What the hell have we been watching?
Yeah.
But it's just laughable at this point because it does take, on average, 2 years from conception to finished product to complete a movie. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's the point I was going to make actually, and I didn't find out about this until I did a bit of research on the film to write my script. But this movie was actually commissioned back in 2015. It took 4 years for it to get made, and I think it's very much a product of that Ghostbusters era thinking, especially because it was made by Sony again. I think at that time they were just like, yeah, girl power is the way forward, and like if we just make loads of movies that push that as hard as possible, they'll all succeed. And so, obviously Ghostbusters was a massive flop, but this thing was in the pipeline by that point, and the mindset that had gone into making it was there, and it was carried over into now. And yeah, I think that's perhaps why it came out. If it had been on the sort of normal time scale of a year or two to get it made, I don't think it would have come out like this. And I think they would have put some kind of gag on Elizabeth Banks from talking about feminism, because they're probably now starting to realize it doesn't sell. The Terminator Dark Fate's another example, I guess, of a big failure recently.
Yeah, well, and you watched that as well, didn't you? From what I remember.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you did a video on that. So, yeah, so you've actually subjected yourself to all these movies that we've been avoiding. So the rest of us have been watching it from the outset. So when we look at, say, Terminator Dark Fate, which this is obviously something that was conceived more recently, because in 2015 we had Genesis. So I think Dark Fate it started shooting in the summer of 2018 when they put that now famous, infamous picture out. I think it was conceived roughly about a year or so before that, because the original Genesis, it was supposed to be a trilogy, so it was to replace that plan after that movie died. And I guess this one, it was I think, did they actually place this one as being the first movie in a new trilogy within the film itself? Because you've seen it, did they really set it up for something else at the end, or is it just like this is the final story?
No, they really did set it up,
Yeah.
because what they've done is established a new John Connor character in whatever her name is, Danny. Um, they've got her paired up with Linda Hamilton. I probably shouldn't spoil this for people, but I would imagine most of you don't give a shit about this film at this point. Yeah,
Spoiler
and
warning. Yeah, just take your headphones off if you really care. So, spoiler warning coming up, and come back in 5 minutes if you don't want it spoiled. I haven't seen it and I don't care, so I'm looking forward to being spoiled.
yeah,
So,
I'll keep it generic. So I'll because I don't need to ruin the whole movie for people to explain what they're
yeah,
doing. But yeah, they've left it open with a new kind of Skynet in the future and a kind of uncertain fate for all of them. So it's very much open ended. They could probably take it. They were hoping they could take it in lots of directions, and probably have it as a passing of the torch to the next generation. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I can't see them making another movie at this point. They've run out of ideas. They ran out of ideas like 3 movies ago, and yeah, I don't know what they'll do from that point on. I think probably Tim Miller was a lot to blame for the pushing of the feminist angle, because the movie itself is not as bad as the marketing would make it seem, or at least it doesn't push these ideas as heavily as the marketing tries to suggest. But it's gone down that route and it turned so many people off as a result. I think it was just a terrible choice.
it's the same thing even with X-Men Dark Phoenix, where it was pushed as a feminist movie. It wasn't really that big a part of the movie. The movie was just awful. I've said this before, but I think I've never seen a better example of a movie where everybody in it, from the actors to everybody behind the scenes, just plain doesn't give a shit. And
Yeah,
you can tell that they don't give a shit. And that almost makes it watchable. Except for Sophie Turner, who is actually trying hard to act. And it's the possibly the worst performance I've ever seen from a central character in a major Hollywood film. But with all these, you're saying Tim Miller. I don't think I've also seen somebody just completely tank their career as quickly as he did. It was 4 years ago he was Deadpool, and we're like, this guy's a genius. Which I still like that movie. Now when you think Tim Miller, oh yes, he destroyed the Terminator franchise. Except destroying the Terminator franchise at this point is almost an afterthought because it's already been destroyed multiple times. And Elizabeth Banks, I used to like Elizabeth Banks. I enjoy some of the movies. Even the stuff that she's done with, well, shall we say, creepy James Gunn. The two movies that she's done with him would be, well, Slither, which I watch every Halloween, and actually the recent one I believe was Brightburn, which I don't think it did that well with the critics. But to be honest, I didn't find it to be a bad movie, so I didn't. So I don't really have any issue with Elizabeth Banks. At least I didn't until this, and it's just mystifying because she goes out and she attacks the fans before the film is even released and says if this film flops, it's going to be the fault of toxic males. So, do you really think that that's going to encourage anybody, male or really even or female, to want to go see your movie?
yeah, it was a really odd choice. I think you're never going to guilt people into watching a film. That's just not going to happen. Clearly, it was like I said earlier, it was marketed towards women. The action scenes are pared back. There's an awful lot of focus on like outfits and shoes and bright colors and things like that. And it sounds so simplistic, but that's the impression I got. Is like the people designing it were like, oh well, women like shoes, so we'll have lots of images of things like that in it. And it's, you're this, if you're going to attract people to see a movie like this at all, like women, it would be with their boyfriends. They go out on a date night or something, they see a fun kind of action flick, and presumably have a good time with it. But like, they made it clear this isn't a movie for men. So the only people who are going to like it are people who tweet about it incessantly. And those kind of people don't actually part with money to support things. So there was just no audience. And I think she knew it was going to flop. She was trying to think of anything she could use to try and drum up some sort of interest or controversy. And it didn't work. No one really cared. It wasn't a high profile thing like Captain Marvel where people would really get behind it. I didn't even know it was getting made until like the first trailer dropped, and even then, no one seemed to take much notice.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to make a video on it, but never did. But yeah, all we noticed was this looks like crap. Well, I think one of the big differences between the 2000 and I guess the sequel was what, 2002, 2003, something like that. But another big difference between them is with the first movie, you had three very high profile actresses. Actually, two of them were two of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time. You had Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu. So just based on star power alone, they could drive the movie. Also, like what you're saying, the fact that I'm not a fan at all of the original movies, but I can appreciate what they were doing, and they were borderline comedies. They were seeing the humor in what they were doing. In this one, you have Kristen Stewart, who has not been a thing since Twilight, and to this day, I still can't comprehend how Twilight ever became a thing. And two actresses that I've never heard of before, and just based on what I've seen in pictures and what I've seen in the trailer, actresses with no charisma or really acting ability whatsoever. It's just, was it that bad? Like, was the acting atrocious in this movie as well?
Yeah, I mean, Gigantor's awful. Like, she's just a big block of wood. The other girl, I can't remember what her name is, but she's like she's like the technical person that they've got to protect. She's all right. She kind of does her best because she's playing a character who's not one of the angels. She's just kind of caught up in this whole thing, and she does what she can. But none of them have presence. None of them have like real charisma or anything like that. And yeah, like you say, Kristen Stewart wasn't even that big of a thing in Twilight. Like, I think those movies would have succeeded with anyone in that role. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but they specifically picked someone as kind of nondescript as possible to play Bella because they wanted teenage girls to be able to project themselves onto the character.
Yeah, I've heard that. She was supposed to be the stand-in.
So it's like, congratulations, you got picked because you're the most boring person we could find. But yeah, everything she's done since then, I don't think is taken off, apart from that Snow White and the Huntsman. But then I think that was mostly Hemsworth who drove that. And
yeah, well, she wasn't even in the sequel to that, from what I remember.
Yeah, I don't think she was. So yeah, there was no big names, and I think they were hoping that they would have got the stars to align like they did back in 2000 and got someone of the same level as Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore, like someone like Jennifer Lawrence or someone like that. And clearly they could not afford people like that. So they just got these low rent nobodies that no one's going to pay to see. What was interesting as well about the movie is Elizabeth Banks apparently did a lot of the writing for it. Hence the reason like her character is practically one of the angels as well. Like, she might as well just be with them as one of the group. And you can tell she just wants to be center stage, but she knows she shouldn't be because she's like a Bosley character. So yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny that you brought up Jennifer Lawrence, which I think I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but yeah, it's kind of funny because she's not really much of a thing anymore. She came in, she had the Hunger Games, she did a couple decent movies, then decided to drop off the map or retire and go preach her stuff for a couple years. Then her comeback movie was X-Men Dark Phoenix. So it's almost like they probably could have afforded her at this point, because I don't think J-Law is really that bankable at this point. So she had 3 flops in a row.
Yeah, because Mother was a big flop. I don't know how they convinced her to do that. And yeah, Dark Phoenix, I think she was contractually obligated to do that. Like, she didn't particularly want to be there.
Oh,
And
you could tell out of the actors out of the actors in the movie that really didn't give a shit. You could tell she gave the least shits of everyone.
yeah, which just makes me think, wow, what professionalism. Like, you know, a good actor, even if they don't want to be in the movie or they know it sucks, like they'll still give it their best because, you could still turn in a decent performance and perhaps get some kind of recognition for that. But yeah, clearly she was just checked out completely.
But no, that's I actually put Dark Phoenix into the so bad it's good category where there's you've got your movies that are bad, but then there's always the so bad it's good, and that you'd put like Plan 9 from Outer Space, Battlefield Earth, Batwoman. I think I would almost put X-Men Dark Phoenix into that category as well, because this film is a complete clusterfuck on every level. And what makes it even either, I don't know if it's either funny or pathetic, but when you look at what came before it, certain movies set aside, but within the X-Men universe of movies, this was a follow-up, or I think second follow-up to Logan, which was I consider that movie a masterpiece, and Days of Future Past. But the thing that confounds me about first Apocalypse, but then Dark Phoenix, is how they went from Days of Future Past, which is, as I've always said, one of my favorite comic book movies, to one of the worst movies I've ever seen within like 5 years, or I guess it was, yeah, 4 or 5 years, although it was on the shelf for, I think it was finished in 2017. And the rumor goes that it was so bad that it was so bad that they did not want to release it in theaters until the Fox Disney merger went through, because the performance of the movie probably wouldn't have destroyed it, but it could have given some bad press around it. So it's kind of like New Mutants. It's this movie where, my God, this is shit. It's sitting on a
Yeah.
shelf. We have to release it at some point. And
The the X-Men series is so frustrating. It's like DC now. It's so inconsistent. They can go from excellent films like you say, like Logan and Days of Future Past and X-Men 2, to complete drivel, and it's just like there's no quality control there, and it's frustrating because you can see what they're capable of when they get it right, when all the stars align and they approach it correctly, but they just never seem to. They never get on a winning streak and just figure out what works and stick with it, and it's yeah, it is frustrating, and especially to see it end the way it did. That Dark Phoenix will be the end of the X-Men for the foreseeable, until they eventually get folded into the MCU and just rebooted. But you know, you had some great talents there,
well,
and you
yeah, it's like
didn't make use of
everybody
them.
aside from Sophie, most of the names in that movie are talented actors, which it makes it even more confounding.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel sorry for Fassbender because for me, he's a great actor, and I really like him. And when he he kind of gives his best. I think he's a good example of what I was saying earlier, of like, I know I'm in a shit film, but I'm still going to give my best performance because I'm professional about what I do, and it shows. But he keeps getting landed with shitty scripts. He's stuck doing Alien Covenant and these awful X-Men prequels, and it's just so wasted. He needs to fire his agent and get a new one.
Yeah, or well, within the movies he's done, I think he might be the closest in the movie to somebody that actually was, outside of Sophie Turner, that was just trying to fail. But you could tell he was not into it, but he was at least trying. So it's an interesting mix. Whereas you have McAvoy, who he's probably the best example of does not want to be there. Like, and he's a good actor, but his performance in this movie, if you watch him the whole time, you just look at his face and he's like, my God, what am I doing here? And the infamous scene with the Jennifer Lawrence sex whammon thing, just the look on his face, it's just blank. He's like, yep, uh-huh. I
Yeah,
just want to get
it's
this
just,
over with.
yeah, just get this take done and then I'm out of here. Yeah, again, McAvoy, another great actor that they've kind of squandered. It's a shame.
Well, they could have done something like they could have done something awesome with that movie. And if J Law doesn't want to be in it, well, then you kick her out. Recast Sophie Turner because that was your death knell right there. But and even just I don't know, shelve the movie, don't release it in theaters, just eventually at some point drop it on Disney Plus, and just let Logan should have been the final chapter to the X-Men series. If Logan was the end, then we would be saying, wow, okay, it had some, it had some bad movies, but what a way to go out. Now we're saying, wow, it had some good times, it had some bad times, but what in the name of holy fuck was that at the end?
Yeah.
And we're the swear train today, so feel free to swear. Everybody swear. We'll earn our demonetization this time.
Fuckity fuck. No, I presume Sophie Turner was cast because Game of Thrones was massive, and there was this assumption at the time that, oh yeah, all of these people are going to go on to amazing careers, and they're like practically household names already, and clearly they aren't. And when you take someone who's who's in a big ensemble kind of cast like that, and then give them a movie that they've got to carry by themselves, it just exposes their weaknesses, and that's where we've ended up. And in terms of the timing of it, yeah, I wouldn't have left it those extra couple of years. Like you say, get it out there before Logan and at least go out on a high. I can see why they brought it out to the cinema, because even if it lost money, it would make more than just releasing it onto Blu-ray or Disney Plus or whatever you might do with it.
It's like a bankruptcy liquidation sale. Okay, God, let's just get something off this.
Yeah, basically, it's like damage control, and maybe it was just a bit of a Hail Mary as well. Like, oh, we'll throw it out into the cinema, and maybe somehow it'll all come together, and people will like it. Who knows? But yeah, they clearly didn't, and they saw it for what it was.
No, I got it for free, so I was happy about that. Speaking, oh yeah, we were talking about our friend Bella and that wonderful series of shit. I actually got those movies for free at some point too, and my plan is to actually have the Talking Goat do a review of the Twilight movies.
Oh, you're a brave man. You
Let,
really
let,
are.
let me know if you want that. I don't know. I may have to. I'll have lots of coffee to get through it and cold medication. But yeah, it's I got them for free, and I'm like, I don't want this. I'm like, wait, this will make a great plan for a video. I don't know if I'll get past the first one because I can't see myself watching all of them to make a video. But yeah, the goat wants to review the Twilight movies. So if you want to see the most ridiculous thing that I've ever put up on my channel when I finally get around to doing it, that will be it.
Yeah.
So in a minute, I'm going to tell everybody about a very mean challenge I did to Drinker a few weeks ago, and we're going to discuss the outcome. I think you know what I'm talking about. But first, I'm just going to take a look at Super Chats here and see where we are. Okay, so from J Pala 821, hopefully I got that right, for $5 US. Score one for Get Woke, go broke, because Netflix killed the unfunny woke. They killed Mystery Science Theater 3000. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it because I love the classics. So I've decided that I'm just not going to. I'm not going to subject myself to that. Take that, Pat and Felicia. This year, this year's Mystery Science Theater 3000 marathon was bad. Well, yeah, I think we can take it as a given now that anything that comes back in 2019, regardless of what it is going to be crap. But I've just, well, have you watched any of those, Drinker?
I have not. No. Yeah, it's not something I've had much experience with, if I'm honest.
The classic Mystery Science Theater 3000, they're actually well worth watching. I would recommend everybody watch one called Mitchell. It's about a fat, overweight cop in the 70s. I don't know. I don't think it's ever got a Blu-ray release, but it's a classic. What the show is. It's them riffing on a really, really bad movie. So actually, kind of like what we do. Actually, they're kind of what you do, Drinker, for the most part. Kind of the proto version of yourself.
Okay.
But the old ones are well worth watching. there's some shows when I see that they've been destroyed, I just decide that, you know what, I'm watching enough woke garbage. I don't want to see everything go down the drain, so that's something that'll be a pass. From Christian, who funded my Timmy's for the week last week. Thank you. Christian is back with $5 Canadian. Hello, fellow Canadian. A tip from the bar wench. Go away now. That was my that was my really bad imitation of the critical. I can't do accents, so I just don't try. From the Angry Gamer 001. Love hearing from both of you. Hello from Team Blue Bulls Trek. Be amazing. Yes, the Angry Gamer. I believe I know you, Angry Gamer. Actually, I do know you. We won't reveal the identity. But yes, you need to come on sometime. From Hamlet's Tragedy 89 for $5 Canadian. Been enjoying your content since last February. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the hard work. When will these people finally implode? I have been asking that for 4 years. I'm still asking that now. My theory is things will not improve until the entire entertainment industry destroys itself, and they're pretty close to it right now. I don't know, Gamer. What do you think? When will this whole situation finally implode?
I think Star Wars could be a big yardstick for this kind of thing. You know, we've seen the backlash to the Last Jedi, and Solo was kind of a high-profile failure. But if the Rise of Skywalker completely tanks, I think that could be a big indicator for most of these studios. You know, what we're doing is not working, and ultimately, we're not going to bankrupt ourselves by pushing this kind of thing. And you know, I don't think they're entirely blind to the kind of feedback or the kind of responses that appear on places like YouTube or just on the internet in general. I think they are aware of a lot of the complaints. I just think it takes time for those kinds of changes to happen in their mindset, because it involves, I guess, a lot of swallowing their pride and admitting that they are on the wrong track. We've obviously seen other things like Dark Fate failing. Charlie's Angels was never going to be a success anyway, but it's another movie that's tried to push these kind of politics and it's failed. And you get enough of them that all happen within a short space of time, it sets a trend, and I think eventually they will notice. I don't think someone like Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm, I don't think she's really in charge of anything at this point. I think they've gradually brought in other people. You look at the success of something like The Mandalorian, which is, for the most part, as far as I understand, it's not pushing politics. It's just telling a good story. And everyone's like, oh, wow, shit, this is great. Give us more stuff like this.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Have you had a chance to see any of The Mandalorian, or just kind of hearing it from us? Because I don't even know. Do you guys even get it in your neck of the woods?
No, Disney Plus doesn't even launch here until March next year. But fortunately, I know the right people, so I've got like the first 3 episodes ready to go, and I just haven't had time to watch them. I was out getting rat arse last night and didn't get a chance to watch it yet. But I'll probably watch them tomorrow, I hope,
Yeah.
and I can start to actually share my thoughts on it. I'm going into it with pretty cautious optimism.
Well, I'm 3 episodes in. I have no time to do anything lately. I'm gonna get to the 4th, but it's an improvement. Although I understand that some people had issues with the 4th episode, so we'll have to see. But yeah, Baby Yoda is killing me with cuteness. I'm like, good God. And this is where I'm losing all my street cred. He's got his little hood and his little Jedi powers, and I'm like, no, it's you cannot hate Baby Yoda, and if you dislike Baby Yoda, you're an asshole. It's
See,
like the cutest thing ever, and he's not a porg because he services the plot.
yeah. And is it the Yoda, or is it just one of his species?
It hasn't been determined yet, but I have my theory. I don't think this is a spoiler because this is just the ravings of a high on cold medication Canadian. He's going to be Yoda's son, or my theory is that he's a clone of Yoda. and we'll
Okay.
see if I'm right or wrong. But there might be some minor. I understand that there's some minor woke moments in episode 4, but for the most part, it's a woke free show. Well, you have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni behind this. So yeah, unlike the movie series, you have people that know what the hell they're doing. Jon Favreau has been responsible for a lot of what I call the good MCU movies, and Dave Filoni gave us the Clone Wars, which some people are mixed on them because they're animated, but I've always liked the Clone Wars. So there was always I held to that belief going into. I'm like, okay, yes, this is Disney Star Wars, but you have people that know what they're doing behind it. And it was also the show Disney based the launch of its entire streaming service on this show. And if they went all out woke with this or went Last Jedi, the company would probably be on the verge of bankruptcy right now. And J.J. Abrams also recently mentioned the Phantom Menace. So there's also a view that this movie might not exist without the now absolutely massive Phantom Menace, or this TV show wouldn't exist without the now absolutely massive Phantom Menace movement. So I guess not I don't cover it so much myself, but Geeks and Gamers and some of the larger channels, they I think they played a part in this as well. But it's worth watching. I'm cautiously optimistic because we all know how these things could go. So we'll have to see where it's headed. So far, it's not a masterpiece, but I'm enjoying it. And like I said, Baby Yoda is killing me with cuteness.
Mm-hmm. I think, mentioning Dave Filoni there, he was actually tipped to be taken over from Kathleen Kennedy at one point. But I think the issue with him was that he didn't have experience of running such a large studio. But then you've got Jon Favreau, obviously an experienced director. The two of them working together. You could potentially see this as Disney testing the waters of these guys and their ability to work together and their ability to run a large production. And, if The Mandalorian does particularly well, wouldn't be surprised if they get promoted fairly quickly. I think you've also got Kevin Feige coming in. So you're starting to see more of these Marvel guys who've got experience of making successful projects being brought into Lucasfilm. And it's almost like they're there to kind of fill the gaps of experience and ability that have just been really lacking. And I wouldn't be surprised if that continues. Disney will never admit to anything like this. Clearly, they can't admit that they've backed the wrong horse in Kennedy, but there'll just be a quiet reshuffle behind the scenes, and suddenly, maybe you'll start to see more movies coming out made by these guys, and it's just getting things on the correct course again. Hopefully, it's just a shame that it's taken such huge failures, and the Skywalker saga probably ending on a completely bum note to make this happen.
I'm just putting some trolls here in a timeout. Just a sec. We've got an idiot spamming the stream, so just bear with me, folks. Yeah, I see what's going on here. You are done. Must be my haters. Okay, I think I've cleared out most of them. If you look at the chat, we've got lovely people in there right now who are saying very bad things. So you are gone. Okay. Yeah, it's actually multiple people. I'm sure this is part of my hate group. Okay, is it done? Okay, I think we're done. Sorry about that, folks. I'm sure you all saw what was going on in the chat, so I think I've gotten rid of him. Oh, no, he's still here. Goodbye. Okay, I'll go back to that in a few minutes. But yeah, I think the question of if Favreau and Filoni end up taking over the Star Wars universe, and I think if because we know Benioff and Weiss are not happening, they killed their career with Game of Thrones. But if the Rise of Skywalker flops as bad as we think it did, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. A lot of people are saying I'm nuts, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for this one to do as badly as Solo did, because there's so much apathy and anger towards this movie that I don't know anybody that's actually excited to go see it. Some are going to see it just as a curiosity. Some of the normies will go see it. I'm going to go see it so I can review it. But I think if this movie flops, then the only way to save Star Wars is to do a complete reset. Hopefully, drop the identity politics. I'm a little weary of Feige at this point because he did bring us, the first decade of amazing MCU movies, but he also, I don't know how much of a say he had in the, shall we say, somewhat left turn of Phase 4. So that leaves me a little concerned.
Yeah, he
But
seems to have a bit of a love affair with Brie Larson as well, which is very concerning.
I think she has something on him. That's been my theory all along because I don't know how anybody could have a love affair with her. She's just so lovely, just a beaming sunshine of friendliness. But yeah, I think like I think it's going to be very difficult to save Star Wars from where it is right now because there is so much anger. And I think J.J. Abrams, well, I think largely with incompetence and ripping everybody, including himself, off, and stories that go nowhere. JJ ruined it through incompetence, but Ryan Johnson, I think, did more damage than JJ because I don't know. I think he actually still has me blocked on Twitter. But have you ever seen anybody go after the fans quite to the degree that Ryan Johnson did?
No, it's unusual. It really is. And like, even someone like me who's got like 1 millionth the number of followers that he does, like I just generally don't engage with people if they try to provoke me on Twitter or anything like that because it's not worth your fucking time. You know what I mean? Like it just pisses you off, it wastes your time, and it gives the people who are harassing you exactly what they want. They just want your attention and they want to try and piss you off. So, you know, I won't engage with it. I really don't see why he does, because what does he gain from it? It just comes across as like a petty asshole. It's like, have a little bit of professionalism. You've made your product, you've made your movie. Some people didn't like it and they're having a go at you. Just ignore them, man. Be the bigger person. But he can't. And I think it speaks to a lot of insecurity probably with him. I imagine that he's just very touchy about all that sort of stuff, and he just won't accept any form of criticism, which it baffles me really, because if enough people are telling you the same thing, you don't have to argue with them, but at least like think about what they're saying and acknowledge their critique, because it's not about hatred or on a personal level. It's about like, we didn't like the product that you created, you know. So yeah, it's a strange one, and I think if he was lower level coming after fans the way he did, he probably would have been reprimanded or fired for this kind
Well,
of behavior.
well, generally, I know like a lot of us have worked in customer service and retail. You do that to a customer, yeah, your ass is going to be thrown out the door because he's attacking his customers. That's what just confounded me. And I think the guy's just, he's an ass. And there's that clip of him saying, I think it's a good thing if half of the viewing audience hates my movies. I'm like, well, then what the hell are you doing in Hollywood and who the hell hired you?
Yeah, that's just the kind of hubris of a wannabe auteur, and I think presumably that was made many years ago, because he looks a lot younger in that clip.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think it was from like 2002 or something.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of stupid shit that you say when you're young, and I, I don't know
Except
if
he's
he's
older
still.
and he's still doing it.
Yeah, like that, you would normally get over that kind of thing and realize, yeah, I actually have to deliver good quality products, especially for a company like Lucasfilm. This isn't where I can make some divisive art house flick that's all experimental that people, love or hate. This is something big, And I think, you know, had JJ been in charge of all three movies and they'd stuck to a coherent story, it wouldn't have been great, but I don't think that many people would have been mad about it. I think what you would have just got was like, meh, okay. It was kind of mindless entertainment, but it wasn't offensively bad or anything. Um, but throwing Last Jedi into the mix, that was such a swerve and that was so disrespectful to so many characters, yeah, it just absolutely poisoned the fandom. Um, and I think even normies who watch these kind of movies picked up on it.
Well,
And I think
it's
it's interesting now the media actually calls it a controversial movie, whereas a year ago, they would have just called it the greatest masterpiece that humanity's ever produced. Even they're having to acknowledge, yeah, it's not been that popular.
Well, look at the original reviews from 2 years ago. What was it, 94, 96%? And I'd actually avoided, because I wasn't able to see it on release night because I got stuck working. So I ended up seeing it the following day on Saturday. So I was actively trying to avoid YouTube and Twitter and any social media, but just briefly logging onto my YouTube that morning. You could see all the thumbnails. I'm like, well, people don't like this. I'm not going to watch anything. I'm going to go and judge this for myself. And you get lost a little bit in the spectacle because it is a very pretty movie. And then a lot of it is done for shock factor, where when we see certain things happen in the movie, I guess if nobody's seen it, I won't spoil it for you. But you could tell certain things in the movie are done for shock factor. So when you see it happen, you're like, holy crap. Then you think about it, like, what the hell was that?
Yes.
So the end credits roll, and I'm just sitting there in my chair and like, what in the name of hell did I just watch? So that I went home, and actually I think that it was around then that I actually discovered Geeks and Gamers. I was one of Jeremy's very early subs. But I'm just looking at the reaction. I'm like, holy shit, everybody believes what I do. And then I think Mahler, I think within a week or so, or shortly thereafter, came out with his multi-hour part video series, pointing out everything that's wrong with the movie. But it's a very strange movie experience. And now I've watched The Last Jedi multiple times, but for me, it's like Battlefield Earth or Batwoman. It's a curiosity where I'm absolutely mystified as to how they managed to screw up the movie that badly on pretty much every level. And you kind of knew things were not going well early on with the General Hux scene. Like, okay, yeah, so Star Wars does comedy, but like this is worse than Phantom Menace. It was just absurd. And I think right now they're doing everything they can to try and prevent Rise of Skywalker from being a disaster. And it's not going to happen. Well, did you see the clip that they released this week? I think there was another one, but the one with the speed chasing scene where they tried
they
to
can fly.
yeah,
They fly now. Yeah, I mean, it's like, Christ, out of all the things you could have picked to show, why that? Why such, a scene with such basic, dumb humor? That it's the exact opposite of what you should be showing us. You should be showing us like epic, dramatic scenes that will somehow get us hyped up for what we're about to see. But it's like, yeah, here's just a generic chase scene with some flying stormtroopers, and oh, there's a bit of goofy humor. Like, what are we supposed to take from that? It does nothing. And then I love the fact that people devote so much time to like picking it apart. It's like, what the fuck is the point in these bikes that are only useful for this one specific scene that they're in? Like,
yep.
why don't they just fly to begin with? Why are they even on bikes if they can fly? All of these kind of things. It just invites mockery, I think, and it's a real sign of how hostile people are to this film. They just won't accept anything that they see. So yeah, God knows what the reaction is going to be when it finally comes out. It's interesting, when you were talking about how you experienced Last Jedi and you came out of it. There's so many people have said the same thing, where it's like they didn't get angry or realize straight away what was wrong. It's almost like they came out of the cinema thinking, I think I like that, but I feel like there's something not quite right about it. And it's almost like you have to sit on it for a couple of days and really think about it, and then you start to pick it all apart, and then it comes down like a house of cards. I certainly, my experience was, I went into it with one concern only. I was like, I don't care too much about the new characters. I'm not invested in them anyway, but just treat Luke with respect, because I'm pretty sure you're going to kill him off in this film. Let him go out in a blaze of glory and a fitting end for the character. And they did the exact opposite of that. So I came out just really bummed out about the whole thing. And yeah, like you, went on YouTube afterwards, and it's like, what are people actually saying about this beyond the critics?
Then we found out.
Yeah, I saw Dishonored Wolf's video about it, where he just absolutely eviscerated the film.
Oh god, yeah. I think he took that video down too, which sucks because I think it went down on his channel.
Yeah, if you're going to have a rant, that is how you do it. He just destroyed it, and then that led me on to Mauler, and then I think then I found out about Geeks and Gamers and various other channels that they were all saying the same thing in different ways, and they were just expressing their complete dismay about this film, and it just shows you what a profound effect it had on so many people in a bad way.
And I don't think at that point, because the woke identity politics trend in 2017 was still kind of in its infancy. Like, we'd had Ghostbusters the year before that, but it was 2017 and really 2018 when everything went into overdrive. So even within this, that was also something kind of new. I'm like, you get to the scene where you have purple hair, Holdo, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? And then you get to the scene on Canto Bite, and then as soon as that arc is over, it's okay. What was the point of this? There was no
Yeah,
point to that whatsoever. And like the whole movie is running out of gas chase sequence from Star Wars. I'm like, there are issues with the prequels. Episode 1 and 2 are not good, but at least George Lucas was trying. And there are some good aspects to those movies. Like, I like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, even though he's come out as kind of a left-wing lunatic. But I love the Palpatine arc. I think that for me makes all three movies. So I can set aside the rest of it in the first two to watch the Palpatine arc. And I think episode 3, a lot of people disagree with me on this, but episode 3 is probably my second favorite Star Wars movie. And that movie kind of tends to fall into the love it or hate it thing. But
yeah. I mean, sorry, on you go.
oh no, go ahead, man.
No, I was gonna kind of agree with you there. Like for me, the prequels, they've got a good concept that tells an interesting story. It's just the execution that's not very good. The directing is kind of flat and dull, and it's too CGI heavy. And the dialogue needed to be written by someone else. But like ultimately, you're telling quite a good story, and I think that's what people kind of respond to. Whereas now you've got no real story and certainly not a consistent arc for anything. So at least back then you had the bare skeleton of something good. It just the meat on the bones wasn't well done, and that's the difference for me.
I think it's George Lucas, love or hate the man. His heart was in the right place when making the prequel trilogies. He didn't make them to trash the fans, and obviously he was personally impacted by the hate that he got. And comparatively to what we're seeing now, those movies actually aren't that bad. Well, Hayden Christensen in episode 2, okay, yeah, that's bad, but they came from a place of respect. Just the problem with George is he surrounded himself with yes men, and nobody was willing to challenge him on anything. And that was the problem with that movie. It's like
Yeah,
Jar Jar Binks. Yes, George, that's a great character. That's a great idea. Those are great jokes to start off your movie. Where if it would have been, say, like The Empire Strikes Back, where, well, even the original Star Wars, but Empire Strikes Back with Kasdan, if he had somebody working with him, George Lucas, he's good on story ideas. He's not good at dialogue, and I don't think he's the best director. If he had, say, a couple decent co-writers on those films, if he had somebody else directing, if it wasn't all CGI, which unfortunately has not aged very well, then that would be the difference. But with KK, it's completely different. It's not coming from a good place. It's coming from a place of really hating the fans and showing complete disrespect to George Lucas, because we all know the story that they threw his script ideas out the window. So it's what I'm getting at is the prequels did not kill Star Wars. Why? Because George Lucas really wasn't a dick, and he did redeem himself in episode 3, but he wasn't attacking the fans. And I think, say, The Last Jedi, one scenario where it does badly, but Ryan Johnson isn't out attacking the fans, because I think that, even just as much as the movie, brought the hatred towards it. So if you didn't have that, then maybe it might be forgivable, although there's also the talking points in that movie. So I think that's the difference between the sequel and prequel trilogy. We can forgive the prequels, but I don't know if fans can forgive the sequels.
No, I don't think so. And it's, I don't buy any of the merchandise or anything. I'm too old for toys, but like from what I understand, none of them are selling, and I think that was always um, the real sign of whether Star Wars was doing well. As far as I know, back in the day when the prequels came out, people were still going nuts for the toys. Everyone was
Oh,
buying,
they
like
were.
the
Yeah.
spaceships and the characters and everything, and that was great. And I'm sure it gave birth to like an even bigger expanded universe with all the guys like Obi-Wan and Anakin going on adventures in between movies, all that sort of thing. So that all did well. But now, the toys aren't selling at all, and kids don't care about Star Wars. They've fallen in love with Marvel and all that sort of thing now. So the movies just aren't even making an impact. All you've got is your core audience of big hardcore Star Wars fans, and they hate it. So
Yeah.
it like they've completely like backed themselves into a corner with this one. But yeah, interesting what you were saying there. But you know, the Last Jedi have been a very visually good film. It is like there's as much as Ryan Johnson can't write to save his life. He's a good visual director. There are scenes there which are excellent. Like the hyperdrive into the supremacy when everything just goes silent and you see that and getting split in half. You could have heard a pin drop in my cinema. It was just a special moment. But it, in story terms, it completely breaks the universe because it does all these things that can't be rationalized now. This is why when people are like, God, Ryan Johnson wants to direct an episode of The Mandalorian, like keep him away from it. It's like I don't care, because if he's just directing it and he's got nothing to do with the writing, I'm sure it would be fine. As long as he's got no control over what actually happens in that episode, it would be visually perfectly fine to look at, I think. He
Except would
just
his
can't
ego
write.
allow that?
Yeah.
Oh, and she'll take a look at some more super chats here just so we don't get too far behind. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in just a little over a month now. But I think it's going to be an absolute disaster. I'm willing to admit I might be wrong. I have been wrong in the past, but I think this is going to be might be the biggest cinematic calamity of all time.
I don't think it's going to do solo numbers. I think it'll still do 1 billion, just purely on the Star Wars name and the fact that it's the last movie in the trilogy.
Yeah,
But
there's the marketing and the normies which will go see it.
yeah, you if you pump enough money into something, you will make some cash out of it. But it's probably going to be, I'd say, less than The Last Jedi made. I think it could be like 1.1, 1.2 billion. I can't see it going much higher.
Yeah, it's I my guess is absolute best case scenario around 850 million, but like I said, I could be wrong. It's questionable as to whether or not it actually will break that $1 billion mark because there is so much anger towards the franchise. So it's going to be interesting to see. But what's really sad is the discussion is not, oh my god, it's the final chapter and the ninth episode. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. Nobody's discussing that. Nobody cares about the story. What we're discussing is how much of a disaster is this film going to be. That
Yeah,
tells you a lot. When Star Wars went from in 4 years, Star Wars has become this. Although I think because The Mandalorian hasn't been a complete disaster, I think that might give it some momentum as well. Because there are, people do have issues with The Mandalorian, but the general consensus is, people like it. They don't necessarily love it, don't think it's the best thing ever, but I think it has brought some goodwill back to the Star Wars franchise. So I think that might factor in as well.
yeah. I think the difference being that there's very different people working on these two things.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is a whole different creative team, and as good as it is, and I'm sure it's doing well, like commercially, it is still just a TV show on a
Yeah.
streaming service that not all that many people have yet because it's only just launched. So I don't know if it's going to bring that kind of mainstream awareness yet.
Yeah.
Maybe amongst the fan base, it's
Yeah. It
it's
might help it a
helping.
little bit, but it's not going to be massive.
Yeah,
Although that might be the best they can hope for at this point. So we'll have to see, because I know we've planned doing a stream the weekend after it's released on. We're probably doing it on your channel, I think is what we said. But yeah, we will be able to discuss this in detail and do an autopsy to see how it's performed.
Yeah, I know I'm doing an EFAP one of those days. I think it's like the 21st, but any other time should be fine. Yeah, we'll do something.
Yeah, so I know I won't be doing it on release day because I'm going to be out of town. But yeah, we'll probably do it sometime early in the week, and then we'll see which is right. And if I am wrong, I will admit I'm wrong. But worst case scenario solo numbers, best case scenario 850. And yeah, somebody will call me and I'm like, oh my God, it made 1.5 billion. Well, how did that happen? I don't know. Oh, okay. People have gone nuts. Stranger things have happened. Okay, so let's see where was I here with the super chat. So I was trying to catch up. There's quite a few. So we did Age Boomer. It's summer. From Sci-Fi George for $5. Love both your channels. They made someone eat a literal hair pie in Midsummer? Question mark.
They
Apparently,
did.
I
Yeah.
may watch this out of curiosity.
To put this into context, they apparently it's almost like a love potion. So if you want to make a man fall in love with you and you're a Swedish girl, then what you do is you bake a pie and you snip some of your pubes off and you put those into it and then bake it up. Because when he's eating it, he's like, "What the fuck?" He's like got something stuck in his teeth, and he pulls it out, and it's just this hair. So yeah, I can't vouch for whether or not that approach actually works and makes people fall in love with you, but it's not something I'd be keen to try.
No, I
But
don't
yeah,
think we've ever done that in Canada.
It's a pube pie essentially.
Well, and that goes into the second part of his question. Did they give them a shot of Drano afterwards? LOL. Well, maybe.
Yeah, there's booze. They drink various things. He does get given a drink, which is suspiciously yellow in color. Make of that what you will.
Well, fun time. So I might actually have to check out that movie just for the hell of it. From Henry K. For $2 thumbs up. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much, Henry. For $2 from, I'll probably get this wrong, Kuhuzan. Bulls Trek, are you really Wallace Shawn? Yeah, people have been saying I sound like Wallace Shawn in the chat today. No, that's the remnants of my flu and my cold medication. From Matt G again for $2. Took me years to watch the Twilights with riff tracks. Well, just wait until you've heard it with a goat. Bring alcohol. From David M for £5 British. Keep up the good work. Afraid I can't stay and watch live. We'll catch up later. Oh, well, thank you very much, David M. So when you're watching this later on, hello and thank you. From Southeastern Kaiju for $5. Bulls Trek, Nerdrotic, Doomcock, all sick. I suspect devious YouTube shenanigans at play. Take a medicinal shot and heal up. I don't know. YouTube has been at war with me for a while. So yeah, maybe they've figured out how to poison me through my computer screen. I blame YouTube for this as I cough. Once again from Aged Boomer. Okay, Boomer, again for $5. Bulls Trek, I saw your video on the new Doctor Who trailer. Will they destroy the Cybermen in the new season? I will answer that definitively. I could say I would admit if I'm wrong, but I'm guaranteed I'm not wrong. Yes, they will destroy the Cybermen. They will destroy the Jadoon. They will continue destroying the Daleks. It looks like they might also destroy the Sea Devils. And Drinker, yeah, you said you saw the trailer as well. We when we did the stream last week, I had Starry-Eyed Girl, Nerdrotic, and TARDIS Zone on, and we probably spent an hour or so dissecting the trailer, and none of us were very impressed. And we're going to go into this in a minute, but before we go into the mean thing that I did, what did you think of the trailer from, again, the perspective of somebody that's an occasional viewer and has only watched one episode or so in the past 6 years?
Yeah, like I feel like I've just opened the door and saw an orgy or something, but like it's all really fat, ugly people. So like I don't really know what to think of it. It's Yeah, this trailer, it's got some of the classic, villains in it, like you say, the Cybermen. Did you mention the Sea Devils as well? Like, God, if they
There
could
is
bring them in.
a brief shot of what looks like a sea devil. So they are going to bastardize it. There are also rumors surrounding the master, so they're going to bastardize. Looks like they're going to bastardize him as well.
Yeah,
It's basically this is Chibs just taking all the classic monsters, classic everything, and just destroying it.
it's a weird experience because it's like someone has just done a fan fiction of Doctor Who, and it's somehow gotten made into a TV show. It's some of the same elements are in it. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's consistent with anything. Um, you know, the I think I said to you earlier, the kind of the effects, the CGI looks okay. The way the shots are put together looks fine. It's going to be more of the 13th Doctor. It's going to be more of her like dozen or so companions, and probably it's going to be more preachiness and silliness. And it's not something I can get enthusiastic about. Put it that way.
And well, yeah, and you quit watching regularly around the Matt Smith years. So you left just when the show started to go downhill. Nothing like what it is right now. Moffat brought identity politics in during his last two series. Unfortunately, it had to be with Peter Capaldi, which I think is the best of the New Who Doctors. But you were there at the beginning of the slide where it was just Moffat was overcomplicating everything. But let's and I'll go back to the super chats after we're done this because I have a few more to catch up on. But on our last stream, so this is what I did to the drinker. So the drinker has not really watched Doctor Who since the Matt Smith years. And you'd been aware of the 13th Doctor and you'd seen videos that I'd done on it, but he hadn't actually watched an episode. So I decided to throw him in at the deep end. I encouraged him to review Arachnids in the UK. Now, I'm sure most people, and I'm just going to make sure that that troll is not back. I'm actually, I'm going to see if I can get, maybe I'll get Noel to, Noel, if you're listening, I might hire you as a moderator next week. But yeah, so Arachnids in the UK. Often considered to be the day Doctor Who died. Now, I decided Doctor Who died the episode before that with Rosa because of the way they went about just destroying an important part of American history, African American history, a very important African American symbol in the fight for civil rights, and turned one form of racism into another form of racism. So with me, even though I was willing to give it a shot, for me it died with Rosa. But the consensus is, and everybody that covers Doctor Who also noticed this, with Arachnids in the UK, the entire tone and feeling towards this show shifted. Where that was when everybody's, and it often tends to be around the fourth episode when you get a real feeling for a show. So by the end of that, I noticed my like dislike ratio had almost flipped. My comments had flipped where people were saying, "Oh my God, you're right all along." Well, no, yeah, I guess I kind of was because I did predict this. See, I told you, everybody, I told you so 2.5 years ago, but y'all called me bad names. But anyways, so I made the drinker. Well, I didn't make him, but I recommended. Okay, so you haven't watched in years. You're going to go in with Arachnids in the UK, and the video is also up on his channel. Which, if you haven't seen it, I think it might be one of the best Doctor Who related videos I've ever seen. But Drinker, as somebody who I threw in at the deep end, tell us what that experience was like. So, for somebody that hasn't watched since Matt Smith being reintroduced with Arachnids in the UK, because I think this is actually a very it's a very unique perspective.
God, man, where do I start with this? Yeah, like I came into it blind, because I didn't know anything really about the new series. I didn't know what had been happening with Doctor Who in recent years. So I just came in and I was like, right, I'm just going to focus on this episode and I'm going to review it on its own merits, whatever they may be. And so I watched it, went through it, and kind of made notes as I went on what I was seeing. And it was bizarre. It's hard to even describe what I was seeing. It was like a pantomime or it was like some people were making a fan film of Doctor Who, and everything was so exaggerated and silly that I couldn't get invested in any of it. The actual storyline, the more I tried to break it down, the more I realized it made no sense. The treatment of I can't even remember his name, like Mr. Big, basically the Donald Trump stand-in. Yeah, like he's an absolute, what would you even call him? A complete stereotype, a complete over exaggeration of a character. And so
I called
I,
him stand-in Trump in my videos.
yeah, and so I was watching it just like this just really feels like, okay, we want to give people a lecture about Americans and how they're right wing and how they love guns and how they're dumb and arrogant and brash. And oh fuck it, we'll just put together some kind of plot that will allow us to justify this. Like, well, what have we got? Spiders, whatever. People don't like spiders; they're scary, and we'll make them giant, and they're like created in toxic waste because that lets us put an environmental message in. It was like storytelling completely bent around a message that you wanted to get across, and so the story made no sense. And so I was like, Christ, is this what Doctor Who is now? And I think even just the way it was shot, like it's set in Sheffield. Like, no offense to anyone from Sheffield, but it's not exactly the most exciting, action-packed place in the world. You know,
Sorry, starry-eyed girl.
so sorry. Yeah, they get dropped off. You know, they're outside this crappy looking apartment complex. There's no one. There are no people apart from the smattering of characters who are in this show. And it just feels like the entire thing is taking place in complete isolation. It's all just in a bubble. And so I was like, where is everyone? You know, they've got these mutant spiders on the run across the city. Okay, shouldn't you like notify the government or the police or unit? Does that not exist anymore? Like they're usually around to handle stuff like this. It all just feels tiny. It's like all I can think of is this little group of characters that I've got to work with. I can't tie it into any bigger picture. I can't tie it into lore or anything like that. Just you do these characters, get the message across, move on. It was a strange experience. I mean, I didn't get angry about it because I don't really have any investment in Doctor Who at this point because I kind of checked out a long time ago. But yeah, when I tried to do my review, I was like, I'm just going to break it down based on what works and what doesn't. And as it turns out, most of it didn't work.
Well, I don't think anything actually worked. And yeah, I think Gary's in the chat. Nerdrotic Rosa and Arachnids in the UK was a 1-2 punch. It was. If you were an American, that was a 1-2 punch because they were both like those episodes. Not only destroyed Doctor Who, those episodes lost the American audience. Uh, it's check out Rosa if you want to see just race and really nationality hatred.
Yeah.
Um, and somebody actually had just in the regular chat I've been watching, and then I'm going to keep up with the super chats in a minute. But I've actually there's a request here from a Russ Morgan, Bulls Trek. Now this I'm actually curious about. Bulls Trek. Can you ask Drinker to recite his tale of being sick whilst floating around a water park on a stag do? I was laughing for ages. I marked that because this has intrigued me. So, do you want to take a side story? Because I'm actually curious to hear this now.
Oh shit, man! You want me to do this?
Oh yeah.
Uh, well, it was on a live stream I was doing, and someone was like, "What's your best hangover story?" And I was like, "Shit, man, I've got one for you." So, all right, it'll take a minute or two. I'll
Oh,
tell it as
well, that's
best I
okay.
can.
We'll look at this as an intermission. So
Yeah.
this will be our laughter before we go back to discussing how everything is well crap.
So it was a few years ago, and I was on a stag weekend in Tenerife with a bunch of my mates, and we were staying in like this all inclusive hotel. So it's a free bar. Excellent. So first night we got there, like we went at it, made use of the free bar, then went out on the town to various clubs of the dancing variety, and then came back and had some more free booze. And so when I woke up the next morning, like I was in a bad fucking way. Like I couldn't eat. I just kind of had a cup of coffee in front of me and didn't touch it basically. And then the best man in the group, he had this great idea of like, hey guys, there's a big water park just near our hotel. Why don't we go there for the morning and that'll be good fun? So I was like, fuck man, I just want to go back to bed, but I didn't want to be the weak link, so off I went with them. And I was looking around at like these fucking slides were like 100 feet high and stuff, and I was like, if I go down things like that, I am gonna hurl everywhere. So I know what I'll do. I'll go on the Lazy Boy River thing and I'll just float around for a while and it'll clear my head. Everything will be fine. So I'm sitting on this rubber ring floating down a river and I'm just bobbing up and down, and I start to get that kind of hot feeling in my stomach, like rising up into my throat, and I'm just like, shit, I'm gonna go, man, I'm gonna spew. So I kind of jumped out this rubber ring and managed to clamber up onto the side of the river just as it was going through a tunnel, and just absolutely spewed my guts up everywhere. I couldn't even breathe properly because I'd got the breathing wrong. And as I'm doing this, I just hear a kid behind me who must have been floating along the river behind me going, Dad, why is that man crying? And I just hear this big Glaswegian voice going, don't you look at him, son, don't you look at him. And so he's floating by, and then I just hear the guy mutter to himself, oh, for fuck's sake. And then off he went. So that wasn't my finest hour, but yeah, that was my worst hangover story. I'm still traumatized by it, and so is that kid probably.
So that was our intermission, folks. I don't know. As soon as I saw that come up, I got curious. Was you? I think I've watched most of your streams, or might, I don't know. I'll have to check that out. But yes, awesome story, man. I don't even think I remember my best hangover story. There was the time when I was 16 and almost killed myself with alcohol. That evening, I, for some reason, drank a 2-liter pop bottle of vermouth. I had about 2/3 of a 26er of Crown Royal, and then followed that up with somewhere between 6 or 8 beer. I don't remember anything that happened after that, but I have been told stories. So that young 16-year-old me, I'm lucky I'm not dead. To this day, I don't know how I'm not dead with drinking that much. It must have been 5 or 6 hours. Maybe that's why I'm just boring now as I gotten older. But yeah, so my best drunk story is one that I don't remember, but I've been hearing stories of for like 25 years. So to the drunk stories. So let's see. We'll go back to super chats, just see what else we have here, as I've got some catching up to do. Just doing a refresh. Okay, so we did Will Cybermen Destroy? Yeah, we did that one. So we've covered Aged Boomer. From Cedric Taylor 08 for $5 US. The land of woke is sleep. Give me my steak, medium rare, and steak fries, and I'm black, and I'm a black male. Ha ha. From Left Eric for $5 US. Thanks for the great reviews and dialogues with the Critical Drinker. You guys rock. Well, thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
From I will once again mispronounce this, from Frag Minion for $10 US. In either of you guys' opinions, which sci-fi franchise is the most woke at the moment? Star Trek, Star Wars, or Doctor Who? I will never be able to forgive Ron Moore did Battlestar Galactica. That's a good. Actually, no. Doctor Who is the most woke. Doctor Who is by far the most woke.
I think we got a similar question about this last time we did a stream. It was like, which franchise is more fucked, like Star Wars or Star Trek? And I think we struggled to come up with an answer, I think, because there were so many factors of shittiness to consider.
I think it's actually, yeah, this came up on my live stream with the TARDIS Zone about 2 weeks ago. We talked about it for probably 20 minutes. But Star Wars, I view a little bit differently because I think The Mandalorian has given Star Wars hope. So this is since the last time we talked. So maybe, and I think if The Rise of Skywalker is bad enough, and because Disney has to make money off this franchise or they're fucked. So I think Star Wars might be able to turn around. So Star Wars, taking into account the Mandalorian in with the film series, Star Wars might be turning a corner. Like what I said last time, Star Trek Discovery, because it's on a streaming service that nobody watches, the regular public has no idea what this is. And it's not even so much that I'd say it is woke, but the problem is it's so badly written. The characters are awful. Michael Burnham, the central character, is absolutely detestable. So Star Trek's just bad. It's like an all-inclusive, all-around shit fest where everything about it is bad. Doctor Who, well, everything about that is bad too, although it does look a little bit prettier this season. But Doctor Who, and I think it's possibly, my theory has always been because it's funded by the license fee, so they're not really beholden to the private market, so they can do whatever the hell they want. For my opinion right now, thinking it over, Doctor Who is the most woke. I think if we want to use a favorite SJW term, toxic, I think hands down Doctor Who is the most toxic franchise out there right now. And I think it's also because we've seen the trailer for the upcoming series, and because I've been reminded of, it's a very small element of the fan base, but I've been reminded of just how toxic and nasty this fan base is. So my opinion this week is, yeah, Doctor Who is the most screwed. Drinker, what do you think this week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same level of kind of exposure to Doctor Who, so it's hard for me to make a judgment on that. But like based on what I've seen, yeah, I wouldn't argue with it. I think, you know, the level of kind of preaching in Star Wars was pretty hard to take in the Last Jedi. So that felt extremely woke. Hopefully, like you say, there is a bit of hope with the Mandalorian. With Star Trek, I didn't bother much with Star Trek Discovery because I could see the direction it was going in, and I'm like, yeah,
don't worry, nobody did.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm not going to waste my time on this. It's just not worth it. The movies, they weren't necessarily that woke. They were just terrible. Like I can't think of a good one really. Even the first one. Just very generic. Feels like they've recycled ideas and just made them into dumb action movies. So, yeah, Star Trek, I think, has just suffered from lack of creativity. And if Star Trek Discovery is super woke, yeah, no one's going to care because no one sees it anyway. So, yeah, I would imagine Doctor Who, because all you've got with Doctor Who is the TV show. There's not a separate movie franchise. There's not, comics or anything as far as I'm aware. There's not video games or anything like that. So that's all you got. And if it's gone woke, then that's all there is.
Yeah, well, there are other media. There are they've introduced a few video games. They've all been terrible. They do have Doctor Who comic books, but the circulation is not that great. So it's pretty much both of those are a non-thing. There are the Big Finish audios, which is for some of us, because it's only based on the classic series, so it's the closest to real Doctor Who. Although the former producer of Big Finish actually said some very nasty things on Twitter yesterday, so I'm a little disillusioned about that. But these are all very niche things. As far as the general public is concerned, it's not like Star Trek, where you've got, or Star Trek or Star Wars, where you've got movies, you've got TV series, you've got very well-known animated series, you've got the expanded universe, you've got comic books. So that kind of aside Doctor Who thing does exist, but literally nobody buys it. And now definitely nobody is buying it. And they have the Doctor Who magazine, which I actually used to follow, but it's become a complete woke fest along with the show. It's like the show, it's almost, the reading is so bad, it's kind of funny. But yeah, Doctor Who, as far as regular people, and to be honest, a lot of Doctor Who fans, because Big Finish is a niche thing and the other things are non-issues. Yeah, it is just the show. So
what came to mind actually when you were mentioning Big Finish. I know that Paul McGann was quite heavily involved in that as God. What would he be like the Eighth Doctor?
Yeah, Eighth Doctor.
Um, yeah, and like I didn't know this about him until recently. Like I thought he just did the TV movie and then it was like one and done, and off he went to do other
Oh
stuff.
no,
But like
he's been
he
doing
got
that for
really
20
involved in
years.
it.
Oh, yeah, he's well, Big Finish. The company was founded in 1998. They started with Bernice Summerfield, which was a Doctor Who spinoff. Then in '99, they got the license to do the classic Doctors. So they started off with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy. In 2000, they picked up the rights to Paul McGann. So in essence, Paul McGann is the longest running Doctor because they this was 3 years after the TV movie, so they pick up pretty much right where that leaves off, and it's been a continuing narrative since 2000, which is continuing now. They 10 years ago they split him off from the sort of the main monthly range, and he's been doing his own thing, but it's been a continuous Doctor. So in essence, he has been the Doctor for 23 years
I think it's
continuing.
yeah, and it's such a shame because actually he's a really good actor, and it's like surely they could have brought him back for a guest appearance on one of the episodes or something. They always do these crossover episodes with previous Doctors, but it feels like he's just been ignored by the TV show completely. Like they want to forget that he existed, and it's a shame because I actually quite liked his Doctor. The movie wasn't good, but like he was good in it. And
Well, have you seen the short "The Night of the Doctor"? Which
yes, when he turns into
yeah,
the War Doctor.
yeah.
And it's
Well,
like, holy shit, this guy's going for it. Like acting wise, he's really putting everything into it. And it's like, God, if Jodie Whittaker had like 1/10 of that like commitment and talent, then we'd probably be talking very differently about the current season.
oh yeah, and that's what people have been saying for years. And a question that I get asked is, how can you save Doctor Who? And I think it's in many ways unsavable right now. But one way of saving it is to fire everybody involved with the show. Like Chibs, when he came in, he cleared house. So that's another reason why it's so different. There's nobody at any level left over from the RTD and Stephen Moffat eras. Like they were gone. And then he brought in his quote diverse team. Uh, but my view is clear everybody out, get a deal with Amazon Prime, like what they did with Good Omens, where because I think Prime really toned down the wokeness in that, and it kind of put BBC in check. So do a partnership with Prime, so be on BBC in the UK and Prime everywhere else. Bring in Paul McGann as the Doctor because we know that he can revisit old faces, or or even, excuse me, have an episode take place during the Time War or sometime during his era. Bring in people that know what they are doing. Bring in experienced Doctor Who writers, not from the Chibs era, that know what the hell they're doing. I think that's, you bring in Paul McGann, you'll save the show, because it's not talked about because he hasn't been on screen. But in terms of Big Finish, because I've listened to everything McGann has done, his Doctor is absolutely brilliant. Like that was a missed opportunity, and he's older now. I think he's 60 now, so he actually would be the oldest person ever to take on the role of the Doctor. But he looks a lot younger than William Hartnell did, and he was 55 when he was cast.
Yeah,
So,
William Hartnell lived a hard life, man.
oh yeah, well yeah, the time and the age. But he was also he wore a wig and makeup, which made him look a little bit older than he actually was. But yeah, he was very he was ill while doing the show as well. But yeah, that was back in the 50s, whereas 55 looks like, I don't know, somebody would have looked at 30 back then. Interesting times. But yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's always been my view on that. I think a series with Doctor Who with Paul McGann would be absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see it, but it would be one of the only ways to save the show.
There was something I was wondering about as well. I take it the 13th Doctor has all three companions throughout the whole show, the whole
Yeah.
series. Wow. Why so many?
Well, they
Like,
have done the three companion thing twice before. When Doctor Who originally started in 1963, it was actually originally an ensemble show with the Doctor and his three companions, and the dynamic worked quite well because the format of the show as originally conceived, was very different. Was only that after 2 years, all the original companions had left, so they were replacing the companions. Then William Hartnell was too sick to continue the role, so then they replaced the Doctor. So that's where this continuing thing went in. But the show, it was originally conceived as, just a multiple character show. They did it again with Peter Davison, and that should have been their example as to why it doesn't work. During the Peter Davison years, he had Tegan, Nyssa, and Adric. And Adric is, well, he's become a meme. But Matthew Waterhouse is a nice man, but Adric was the worst companion they ever had. Tegan and Nyssa worked okay because for a while it was just the two of them, and then near the end it was Tegan and Turlo. So, but that should have been their indication. The last time they tried this, which was in almost 40 years ago in the early 1980s, it didn't work. This time it really didn't work because you have the one thing that they're missing is both times when the Doctor had three companions, the companions would challenge him, which is part of what creates your drama. These three are blank slates. They do not challenge the Doctor, and they largely seem devoid of character. Well, Yaz, definitely. And I know you noticed that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that was my understanding of the whole point of having a companion, and especially having one, because then you can have like quite a complex relationship between the Doctor and that one person. And like you say, they should be there to question the Doctor and challenge him, and make him see a different point of view, because he's so experienced, he's so super smart. He almost gets too smart for his own good. Like, you can have someone who's got a more basic knowledge, but it's actually more useful, or they help him to see a different moral point of view on things. And that's the essence of a good relationship and a good bit of drama. But yeah, in this, obviously I've only seen limited exposure to this new series, but they just seem to kind of go along with whatever the Doctor says. No one ever argues, no one ever questions her. And it's like, what is the point in them even being there? I mean, the scene that stood out to me is when they're in the lab and like Toes and Cole's in the background, just like making images appear, and like he's doing shadow puppets in the background because he's literally got nothing to do. Like, the script can't think of things for all these different characters to do, so they do nothing. So it's like, what's the point in them even being there then? They seem to have no purpose.
And I think that's a central problem with agenda-driven entertainment, where if you base it around a character, like i.e. the Doctor, Ray would be another example. It's like the character has to be perfect. You cannot criticize the character, because if you criticize the character, then the view is you're demeaning the character. Well, then what's the purpose of the show in the first place? We watch TV to be entertained. We don't want to watch 45 minutes of people complimenting each other. It's boring. Good drama. Yeah. It's based on conflict. It's based on, inner character conflict. And that's one of the reasons. And some people will say, I can't figure out why this is so dull. Well, that's one of the reasons why it's so dull. You have no conflict. You have no challenges to overcome. And, and I know you're a writer yourself, so you probably identify that in the just in the narrative structure of the show, that the conflicts that should be there with these characters just doesn't exist.
It's a weird, the only way I can put it is like a weird need for self-validation on the part of the writer, where it is like, I have got so little confidence in myself and my characters that I can't challenge them and I can't question their abilities or their personalities, because I've got nothing to back it up with. And so, yeah, like you say, the Doctor throws in these weird compliments at people like Yaz. Like, she says to her mum, like, oh, you've raised the most incredible, beautiful, gorgeous daughter I've ever, you could ever ask for. And then she just starts talking about something totally like unrelated. I'm like, why did you put that in there? It just comes across as really creepy and like manipulative. It's definitely like, approaching it as a writer and understanding how you deal with characters. It's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. If you've got characters who just lean on each other all the time and constantly like prop each other up, you've got nothing to work with. You've got no relationship there. You've just got a bunch of people complimenting each other. It's odd. I've never seen anything like it. It's only in movies and TV shows like written by these kinds of people. It was the same with Captain Marvel. There's a part in it where, you know, her old friend that she's reunited with is like, you know, you might not remember who you are, but I know who you are. You know, you're funny and smart and crazy, and you supported me when I had a kid, and just all these, like, this big train of like ego boosting. She never ever gets questioned as like, you know, I think you're selfish, or I think you're made bad choices or whatever, because they don't have the confidence to do that with their own characters, and it results in such a dull experience just watching them.
And the example that I always use, and I tend to use this example to death, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer, mainly because that's one of my all-time favorite shows. That's an example of how you write, how we would have written a female character before modern day. You know, Buffy's friends were never shy to question her. Buffy was conceived as a flawed character. She was constantly questioning herself. So that's part of what makes it interesting. So that's how you write good characters. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a great contrast to Ray or Captain Marvel or the 13th Doctor. I don't know. Have you ever watched Buffy at all, Drinker?
I did, yeah, I did back in the day when I was in high school at the time. I probably didn't appreciate it the way I would if I watched it now, because, you know, a lot of it was just like, I'm here to watch a beautiful girl kick ass, and that's just fine when you're like 15, you know.
Yeah, and there was that, but there was also the depth of character to it as well, which I think why that show still holds up now. Like this is a show that premiered in 1997, and ran until 2003, or was it 97? Yeah, it was 90, 97, 98 was the first season.
Yeah.
And you could watch it now, 23 or 22 years after it originally premiered, and it still holds up. And
I remember it as, you know, they weren't afraid to make Buffy vulnerable. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. You know, there was plenty of times where, you know, she was genuinely torn up about what had happened, like if she got betrayed, or if she had to kill someone that she didn't want to. You could see the toll it was taking on her, and she wasn't afraid to express that, and they weren't afraid to show a character who could be, you know, grief stricken or unsure of herself, or who can make mistakes, or who could be manipulated or anything like that. And that's great. You've got a vulnerable character that instinctively people like, you know. And they had a great actress in Sarah Michelle Gellar as well.
yeah, and I saw a comment here. Yeah, the new Buffy will destroy that. Yeah, I don't even consider when it finally comes out, the new. I don't even know if it has come out. That's how little I care. But if the new Buffy is Buffy, it's I just consider it an entirely separate thing altogether. Let's see. I think we've missed a few super chats. So I'm just gonna refresh this really quickly.
I'm just looking at one of the comments here. Trump is the next Doctor. Well, he's already Rocky Balboa, so why not?
Hey, oh, that would really trigger them. No, he might be the next. Well, no, he's already a villain. Stand-in Trump. He's been mentioned. They've actually mentioned Trump within the narrative of the show, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, they mentioned him in that episode, don't they? It's like, oh, you're just running to be president because you don't like Trump, and he's like, oh, don't mention that name. And it's like, how can you be mad at him because you literally are him?
Yeah, well, it's things like that where they have no idea. It's just they don't understand basic logic. And the funny thing is, I gave you Arachnids in the UK because it was the most screaming example of everything that's gone wrong with Doctor Who. But the episode that follows it, which is the Saranga Conundrum, is actually worse. It's not only considered the worst episode of the series, but I think it's actually considered the worst episode in Doctor Who history. If you want a good laugh, it's got the most ridiculous villain you've ever seen, the Pating. And just look up the Doctor Who with the pregnant guy. For if Doctor Who didn't die for some people with arachnids in the UK, it definitely died with that episode. Okay, so let's see. So we got two, both for $5 from the Substitute 3. It doesn't matter if they destroy the Cybermen, Sea Devils, etc., as they already destroyed Doctor Who in its entirety. It's preachy, pandering bullshit. He said BS, but since this is a non-censored stream, I will say bullshit. That is true. I don't consider Doctor Who post 2017 Doctor Who. And I definitely don't consider the original series in any way related to this mess we're seeing right now. But it's still, yeah, I'm sorry, my chime keeps going off. But it still sucks to see it happen. Just the show that we've loved for, well, many of us for decades, me since I was a kid, so almost 40 years. To see what they're doing to it, it's like an insult every time they bring one of these out. But yeah, I have, in my mind, I have decanonized the 13th Doctor because it's so far removed from everything that came before. Also, from the Substitute 3 for another £5 British. When they've destroyed the big franchises, what are they going to do afterwards? They'll need originality. They have zero creatives without copy paste. And actually, we'll touch on that in a minute. I'm just going to, from Matt G, the last one to get caught up on. Is it possible to get through to an SJW? Get them to see the light? To use a Who analogy, the plot from Into the Dalek applied to an SJW and the Phantom Menace. Or FM, yeah, I'm assuming that meant Phantom Menace, although that was earlier. How do you get through to an SJW? Well, you can't really get through to them. Many people will learn as they get older and kind of find out how the world works, and then they de-SJW themselves. But when they're in the middle of it, there's no point talking sense into them. I've given up on that. But Drinker, back to the Substitute 3's question. So when they've destroyed the big franchises, where are they going to go afterwards? They need originality. This is what I'm hoping. Now, I don't think... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think they have the ability to be original. I think they will try and reboot these franchises they've destroyed. I think you may see a lowering of budgets across the board. If they're going to do this anyway, I think, movies have grown to the point where if you make less than like $1 billion, you're considered a failure, and that is an unsustainable way of doing things. And I partly blame Marvel for doing this because they've just become a money printing machine, and now everyone's trying to equal that. And so you're getting ridiculous movies with like budgets like over $300 million, and they've got to make insane amounts to get it back. And so when you're dealing with that amount of money, you end up playing it safe because who wants to take a risk on something like that? So if there's any way to correct this, it's going to have to be the release of smaller, more conservative movies around the 50 million range. Movies like John Wick have shown what you can do with a relatively small budget and just a talented star who works hard. And it may be that you get more of that. That's the only way I see it of fixing this, because these insanely high stakes tentpole movies that you're getting can't keep going on because more of them fail than succeed. Yeah.
Well, especially now in 2019, most of them are failing because of, the inclusion of identity politics. I think for these franchises, they're going to have to go away for a while and then come back at another time. But yeah, the best thing going forward for entertainment is going back to good original movies. And I think it's kind of sad that one of the first things Disney did when they bought Fox was they shut down Fox 2000, which was the independent film arm of Fox. These were smaller budget movies. Sometimes may just have Blu-ray released at festivals, but something like that was the voice of independent filmmakers. And it's the same thing in the UK. There's not much coming out of the UK anymore. I think the closest thing that we have to non-woke regular films is the horror genre, where because it's a smaller genre, because $50 million is good for a horror movie, the identity politicians, for the most part, have largely stayed away from it. So we're still getting decent horror movies. So that's kind of, not decent. We get a mix of decent and terrible movies, although I'm a horror fan, so I even love terrible horror movies. But it's like the horror genre has slipped under the radar because it's the lowest profiled of the major movie genres. So if we could do that with regular films, then there might be hope. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah. in terms of that question about can you get through to an SJW, I think you might potentially get through to them if you spoke to them face to face. You'll never get through to them on Twitter or any kind of conversation over the internet. It's impossible. They're so kind of entrenched in their mindset that like anything you say will just enrage them.
Yeah, and more often than not, they probably wouldn't talk to you face to face. They love hiding behind Twitter. And my day on Twitter is always interesting when I put up a Doctor Who video, because for a good 12 hours after the video is up, both my channel and my Twitter turned into an absolute shit show. And 2 years ago, when I started making videos like this, I would try to reason with them in my comments, because I'd been doing YouTube for about 10 years at that point, but I had never experienced that level of hate before, which I'm used to now, but at the time, I was kind of taken aback. So I would waste my time trying to argue with these people. And we just end up arguing in circles. And even if you present them with facts, logic, anything, it's like, nope, you're evil. Okay. You're a bigot. Okay. Why? You're a racist. Can you give me a specific example? You're a sexist. Can you give me a specific example? Well, you don't like women. No, I don't like agendas. Like, it's, I've told this story a lot, but the funny example is the video that finally made my channel take off was a video I put out a little over 2 years ago called "Is Doctor Who Becoming a PR Disaster?" I uploaded it in September 2017, and it went viral a month later. And that video, in the video, I actually present a hypothetical scenario where, okay, if you wanted to change the gender of the Doctor, there's a way to go about doing it. So I use the example of Olivia Colman, who I think is somebody who could, a female that could very easily pull off the role of the Doctor. So this whole video is not denouncing the idea of a female Doctor, just showing how they could have done it properly, which at this point, the writing was on the wall. The show hadn't aired yet, but we could kind of see where it was going. And the hate that I got on this video from people that obviously did not even watch the video, every second comment was, "You're a sexist misogynist." I'm like, well, I don't really need to argue against you, because if you actually watched my video, then you contradict your entire argument. And so I would spend hours arguing with these people. I don't do it anymore. I just, even on occasionally, yeah, I'll get riled up on Twitter if somebody catches me on a bad day. But for the most part, there's no point arguing with them, because you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. And yeah, like engaging like that. I mean, God, I'm sure I get plenty of comments of a similar nature. But when you're throwing around, words like racist or sexist or whatever, they've been overused to the point where they have absolutely no meaning now anyway. So if someone calls you that, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, it's fucking, you're some fucking nobody with like 3 followers on Twitter, as if it matters to me what you think. And that's the way I try to approach it anyway.
And if you look back, say 2010, maybe even 5 years ago, those 2 words could be the worst thing those 2 words were a genuine insult.
Yeah.
But now they've lost all meaning. And and with my I don't really comment on YouTube videos at all anymore. I might go through and I'll like certain comments. But most of my conversations are on Twitter. But it's kind of funny because occasionally I'll just, because it's similar to when you put up a video. Like when I put up a video, I get comments coming in by the hundreds and thousands sometimes. So there's no way you can possibly read them. So a lot of these hate comments I never even see. Every now and then I'll just, okay, let's just take a look and see what's come up on this video. So I'll read some of them. I'm like, wow, this comment from 6 months ago is quite over the top. Well, that's awesome. I'm really offended now. But it's like you're talking into a void. And then most of them, other commenters will call them on their crap anyway. And then they'll still deny it and then just block everyone. I don't know how many people block me on Twitter, but people that I've never talked to have blocked me on Twitter, which I find hilarious. Or they,
oh yeah, I've seen that before. I think it's just because like if you associate with certain people or you follow certain people, like they just mass block you. So you've never interacted with them in the slightest, but there you go, you're blocked.
Well, my favorite thing is they will tag you, say something very nasty or what they think is nasty, although often I find it just laughable. So they put it up there, make sure you're able to see it, and then block you. I get that quite often. So that's my favorite one. I'm like, really, dude?
Yeah, proper hit and run.
Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, you kind of just disproved your own point. Let's see. So I believe we have caught up on all super chats. And so, oh yeah, we've got one more here. Okay, so from Kenneth LaRock for $5. I've got a lot of Canadians in the chat today. Well, oh Canada, I've basically given up on TV. Just watch YouTube now. I cut my cable. I had a cable box for 5 years, or for the past for out of the past 5 years, I barely watched. For 4 years, it sat there, and I might have it on every 6 months. I gave up watching TV about 5 years ago. Just watch YouTube now. That's a lot of what I watch. Occasionally, there might be something on Netflix or Prime, but most of what's coming up on Netflix now is absolute garbage. So my entertainment mainly consists of YouTube, and I have somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 DVDs and Blu-rays, and I've got a massive horror collection. So that's where most of my entertainment comes from. But yeah, I see no point in spending what was at that point $80 a month for a service that I'm not using. I used to be a news junkie, but even that I can't stand anymore. I don't know, Drinker, do you find that as well, where you're getting a lot of your entertainment? Because I know it's a little bit different in the UK. But do you
Yeah,
watch regular TV?
I mean, it's kind of rare that I've got the time to just kind of plunk myself down in front of the TV and just see what's on. I mean, if I'm not writing or making YouTube videos or whatever, like, yeah, my time's kind of limited, and yeah, it's pretty rare. If there's things that are well reviewed or that I think will interest me, I'll seek them out. But yeah, I don't just generally watch TV all that much. And it's just that's the way it is. There is plenty of good shows out there, but trying to watch them all is just an exercise in futility. There's like 50 different streaming services and hundreds of shows. You'll never get through them all. So I just have to kind of limit myself to things that I think will be really interesting and potentially that I can review.
Yeah. Well, I'm like that too, because my time is quite, because I work full time on top of doing YouTube, and YouTube. Well, you're similar to me because your videos are tightly edited as well. It takes forever to put one of those videos together. Like each one of my woke Batman videos takes 10 to 12 hours to make. So when I do watch something, I want to make sure it's worthwhile because I'm not going to have much time to watch it. Um, Good thing is I can keep up with live streams and things like that while I'm working, so I usually have that playing in the background. So I actually catch up on a lot of YouTube while I'm actually working, so there's the advantage to that. But in terms of spare time outside of making YouTube videos and outside of my job, there just isn't that much of it. And I'd rather go out and do something rather than just you know watch a bunch of crap that I have no interest in seeing on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, like watching TV, it's kind of what I do when I've got nothing else to do. But most of the time, I do have other things to do. So, like you say, it's not got time.
Yeah, well, it's and even that, if when I do have time, or if I'm completely bored with nothing to do, I've got a massive backlog of Arrow Video, Scream Factory, and Vinegar Syndrome releases, so I just work my way through that. So it's like, even if I'm really bored, even if I still had cable, I would never watch it.
Yeah.
Which is odd because we grew up on TV and how the world has changed, where the world is so used to this on-demand thing. And I think that's part of the reason where we've been conditioned, where the traditional TV model doesn't work anymore, where it used to be appointment viewing, where I'm going to watch this specific show at this specific time each week. It's been so long since I've done that, because even when I was still watching TV, everything was DVR'd. So I just watch what I would want to watch.
Yeah. No, I
And
was like, as a kid, we didn't have satellite TV when I was growing up. So we had like 4 terrestrial channels, and then they
yeah,
they had channel 5
BBC
later.
One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4.
Yeah.
See,
And
at
that was
least we
it.
had full cable when I was a kid. But yeah, it was different in North America,
Yeah.
where
Satellite TV was for the rich kids. Like you knew their parents had done well if they had like Sky TV over here.
yeah, well, Sky TV became a thing in the mid '90s, and became more popularized in what, the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s, I think they switched to digital or something, and they kind of expanded quite a bit after that.
So, that was always, I always found that kind of weird when, if I'd talked to anybody from the UK, because, in the 80s and in the 90s, we had full cable. Like, I'm in Canada, but we had our own networks. We get all the US networks. Like where I grew up, we got all the US networks piped in from Detroit. We have PBS. So, when I was a teenager, we had like, I think 36 channels. So, you talk to people online in the 90s in the UK. I'm like, yeah, well, we've only got 4 channels. They're like, you've only got 4 channels? Yeah, and we
Yeah.
had to pay a license fee. I'm like, oh, okay.
Simpler times. But this is the thing, like it goes back to exactly what you were saying. Like there was much less choice, but then you appreciated the shows that were on, and then you also just did other things. Now, you know, it's definitely a law of diminishing returns. The more you spread the market out, the more choice you give people, the less they actually value anything. Like the amount of times I've, you know, seen people or my friends have told me about, like they'll be sitting watching a show, but they'll actually have their phone out and they'll be fucking around on Facebook or whatever at the same time. It's like, well, you're not paying attention to the show, so you might as well not even be watching it in the first place. That's how disposable TV is now. It's just kind of a thing that's on in the background, and you're not, most of the time, you're not even engaged with it.
Well, yeah, it's the what I'll call the attention deficit problem, which for me, from a sociological standpoint, looking at society before and after the smartphone, which we're really only talking about 10 years, where especially young people, because this is what they grew up with, they don't have the attention span to watch a TV because we're at the point where, okay, we're addicted to our phones. We always have to see what's going on. My phone has been turned off since the beginning of the stream when it was going off, so it's like I'm thinking, oh crap, I've got to check my phone. Oh no, my phone is turned off. So I think that's part of what's damaged entertainment, where it has to be something that gets you right away.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with music. Music, it's computerized, based off a hook. Everything is pitch shifted and grid mapped to hell, to the point that it's taken all the feeling out of it, because everything, okay, if it doesn't get you in the first 2 seconds, then nobody's going to care about that song next. And that's the problem with TV and movies. It has to be in your face, or people are going to start looking at their phone. So I think, in addition to the agendas and things like that, I think the smartphone has also done more damage to entertainment than we actually realize.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. And let's see. Oh, we got another super chat from Privacy Seeker. I believe. Oh, I got a peace sign for $25. Well, thank you very much, my friend. You are awesome. So I think we've caught up, and yeah, we're at the 2 hour mark. So, Drinker, there was something involving books that you're doing. Did you want to? Do you want me to
Oh
give you a
yeah,
minute to talk about that? So believe it or not, Drinker writes things.
yeah. I do write words
Yeah, we write
occasionally.
words. He is literate. So, Drinker, tell us about how you're literate.
Yeah, I kind of got started with writing novels. So I write action thrillers. I've written a series of books called the Ryan Drake series, which is currently 8 published novels, and it's been published internationally and done pretty well. And I'm currently working on the final novel in the series, the 9th novel, and it's going to tie up everything that I've been working on for almost 10 years now. So it's kind of a big deal for me, I guess. And it's been a useful thing for me because it taught me a lot about storytelling. And so, you know, the skills, or at least the knowledge that I've gained from being a writer, I can apply that to my analysis of TV shows and movies, and it allows me to maybe see it from a slightly different point of view than some other reviewers would. And I've been quite lucky in that respect. So that's kind of the thing I do when I'm not drinking and tearing apart shitty movies.
Cool. And actually, what I'll do, because I have to update this video because none of my links showed up. Did you want me to? Actually, if you want to send that, I can put a link to your books in the video as well. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking some of them out because I'm quite curious. Because I knew you'd mentioned you were a writer, but I wasn't sure which books you had written.
Yeah, so yeah, it's called the Ryan Drake series, and actually, I'm running a competition at the moment, which is on my channel, where you can get a character in my new book named after you if you win, and you also get some free booze from me, so, and a signed copy of the book, obviously, if you're into that kind of thing. So by all means, take a look if you'd want to give it a shot.
All right. And yeah, and after the stream is done, all this information will be linked in the video. Blame StreamYard. It erased all the links that I'd set up before the stream started. But anyways, we'll just double check. I believe we are caught up on all our super chats, and my voice is rapidly starting to disappear. But actually, we've made it to we're both half dead, and we actually made it to 2 hours. Okay, so super chats are caught up. So, Drinker, is there anything that you wanted to talk about in closing?
My closing statement. I've got a few more reviews coming up in the near future. I went and saw Ford versus Ferrari recently and really enjoyed it at the cinema. So I'm going to give a rare positive review of that. And I'm also going to be touching upon some older movies. So I want to review Unforgiven, which is one of my favorite Westerns ever.
Oh, God, I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited about doing that. That'll be a Drinker Recommends, I think. That's when I really like a movie or a TV show, I'll recommend it to people. And I also want to do a series called The Drinker Fixes, where I take really shitty characters from movies, such as Fat Thor or Rey or Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and I will rewrite them in order to fix them, hopefully, and make them make sense in the narrative without just completely rejigging the entire movie. So that's something I'm going to try and turn my whatever writing ability I've got, I'm going to turn it towards that for a while. And naturally, I'll be reviewing The Rise of Skywalker when it comes out.
Oh, that's going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
And I guess announcements for me. At this point, it's 50-50 as to whether or not we'll be doing a stream next week. Just my work life over the next 2 weeks is going to be absolutely insane, and I have to go out of town for a week. So the videos, which really sucks that this is happening the first 2 weeks in December, but my videos are going to be a little bit less than normal. If I'm hoping I can get at least one out a week, then starting on December 15th, we'll be back to regular service. And then from the 20th to the beginning of January, I hope to have a video a day and a lot more regular live streams. But yes, in case anybody is worried when the content diminishes over the next week, I'm not dead. Well, I might be dead from overwork, but I'm busy. But I will be back. Okay, so I'm just going to do one last refresh here just to make sure that we have caught up. Yep. Okay, so you know what? I'm not going to do my close off today because Drinker, yours is a lot more exciting than mine.
No, you're going to make me do it.
Okay, so I am going to let the Critical Drinker close this video with his trademark saying, because honestly, mine is not that exciting. So, Drinker, take us out.
And that's all we've got for today. Go away now.